Okay, so welcome to the final webinar. I am Gabriella. You're here with Tim and Lucy, and I think Lucille's also on the call. So I'm sure you all know who we are, but we're the team at Life Cycles, and today we're just going to talk you through the final final stages before we get to move on to PIQET 5. So by now you should have all received the tomato tutorial and hopefully worked through that one on app 5. And we are scheduled to move on the 15th of October. So by then you can work through it and then we'll do the final data update, and then you will move on to app 5. But Lucy will take you through that today and answer any questions you might have. Then Tim will answer some frequently asked questions more about the kind of bigger decisions and the new developments we've made, and why we've made those changes and any other questions that you might have. And then afterwards I'll run through some customer updates, just including some of the customer preferences, logos, and then a timeline as well. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions throughout, and I'll let Lucy take it away.
Thanks, Gab, and hi everyone. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Hopefully you've all. Sorry about that. Hopefully you've all had a chance to play around with the development server link that we've sent you. I'm going to be going through a project and taking a bit more time explaining any of the new fields that are new to PK that we didn't have in PK 4. Before I jump in, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything they'd like me to demonstrate today? Please do raise your hand or feel free to interrupt me throughout this webinar if you want me to spend a little bit more time on something. But I'll just jump in if there's nothing. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So when you log in, this is your dashboard. This is the first thing that you'll see. As in PK4, there's a table here with the most recent projects that you've been working on. But we do have this few new actions, so you can hide or copy projects. Scrolling down, there's the toggle to see your personal achievements, which you can switch on or off, and then the latest news. So make sure you check in here every now and again for any updates and important announcements from us. Otherwise, you can get straight into modeling. So click on new project, and the first new thing that you'll see here is we ask you to specify whether you're modeling the packaging or the product. Product is a new feature to PK5, and it has, as you move through the product model, it will look quite similar, except there's fewer fields and fewer life cycle stages. So I'll just go through a more complex packaging product for now, but if anyone has any product questions or wants some more training around that, you can feel free to let us know. So hopefully you've had a chance to do the tomato tutorial. I'll be doing something similar for the purposes of this demonstration. I'll whiz through these ones because this is all the same as PK4. The first new thing that you'll see here is this goal and scope field. Now, this is if you're interested in later down the track, downloading an ISO 1444 compliant report. This is a new field that we've spoken about, a new feature of PK5 that's very exciting, and we have spoken about it a little bit. But we will be providing a document with handy sort of tips and tricks and how to fill these out. You don't have to fill this out at the start. You can do that at the report generation stage, but it is helpful sometimes to have a think about what the goal is in your LCA before you start modeling. So that's why we have the option to get started writing some notes on goal and scope here. But yeah, as I said, you can always come back to this or change it in the report generation section. The next new thing that you'll see is this change default recycling credits settings. So I'll click on this. In PK4 initially, the PK default. Oh, actually, before I jump into that, so recycling credits, that is an important part of LCA and carbon accounting, and it refers to how you allocate the environmental burdens and the environmental benefits associated with the recycling process, how those are allocated between the user of the recycled content and the person who, or the recycler at the end of life. So to avoid double counting of those burdens and credits, we share them. PK default is a 50-50 split, so shared down the middle, but you can select the PEF method. Now the PEF, or product environmental footprint, was developed by the European Union, and it gives a sliding scale between a 20% and 80% allocation, or sorry, 0.2 A factor through to 0.8, depending on how strong or weak the recycling markets are for that material in that, for that material. There's also this custom option with a toggle that you can swap between 0 and 100 if you want to see how changing the recycling credit impacts your results. You can play around with this toggle here and apply it to the different materials involved in your project. But if you don't know, or if you don't know, or you're outside of Europe, we would recommend just sticking with the PK default. Okay, so the next new thing here is this project scope. So the great thing about this feature is previously in PK4, every single field across every single life cycle stage was visible to you. So now in PK5, whatever you have ticked here, PK will mold and adapt to show what's ticked here and hide what you have unticked. We have 3 scope presets available for you to choose from. You don't have to follow these. You can tick and untick whichever packaging life cycle stages and levels and product accounting you would like to incorporate into your model. But if you're not sure, there's these 3 handy, simple ones. So there's simple retail package, ignoring product, which just incorporates the material conversion and end of life of a retail pack with no product information. Or if you click on retail, traded, and pallet package supply chain logistics, you'll see it updates to almost the full packaging supply chain and almost all the life cycle stages. And by default, it accounts for only the product loss and the product mass included in the transport calculations. So the only thing you need to do here is select the sector of the product for the package you're looking to model. So in this case, if I'm doing a tin of soup, I'd choose all other food manufacturing. Alternatively, you can select this full package and product LCA option, and that should only be selected if you are modeling a product project that you will then pull into this packaging project at the product level. So for the purposes of this webinar, let's just go through this retail, traded, and pallet option. Now there's a few more new fields here, and these are all related to, or these are all fields that you would need to put some information in if you were looking to generate an ISO 1444 compliant report at the end, but you don't have to do that at the start. You can always come back to it later. It's just if you wanted to start having a think about these fields here, you can. Any questions on that before I'm on the project settings or the project scope before I move on? Okay. Yes, hi. You've got a question, Alexander?
Hi, good morning. I have one question regarding the project scope, the different options, and how are they compared to the current ones? Basically, my question is the third one, the full package and product LCA,
Mhm.
would it be the most similar to the one that we have now? So we can choose product or packaging in the same project? Or in all cases, we will need to have two different projects in about the same product, one for product and one for tertiary packaging.
So the second option, so you will have to model the product as a separate project, and you would do so. So you would do so in the, if you go back to the dashboard here and click new project, you would select product, and here's where you model the product, and then when you go back into your packaging project, you then pull the product into the packaging project.
So
So
currently,
Yeah.
you will be able to have both projects linked or in the same, linked, both the product and the packaging.
Yes, they will both be linked. So when you get to the report generation or the chart at a glance feature of the packaging project, it will include the product impacts.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
But it also means that if you've got modeled a product, you could use it in multiple different packaging projects because they sit now sort of to the left, independent, rather than embedded within specific packaging projects. So it makes them a little bit more flexible.
there's just a question from Tim in the chat. He said, when it comes to product, is that referring to the contents of the packaging? And yes, that's right. It was previously referred to as packaging and contents module, which sat within the packaging project. So now it's just been pulled out, like Lucy said.
Yeah, it sat in the contents module, and that could then link into the packaging and contents. Yeah.
Okay, so jumping through, we add a new scenario as you normally would and give it a name. In this case, let's call it a steel, right? Yeah, tin. So the next thing that you'll see that's new here is this palette configuration. Oh, sorry, Alex, was that do you have another question, or is your hand still raised from before? Okay, great.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
I had the hand raised, but
Okay.
it's okay. Thank you.
Great. So the next new thing that you'll see here is this palette configuration pop-up. And what this does is, because we have a few different types of standard palette types. So say, for example, the Euro 2 plastic palette, when you save that and jump into your materials, you'll see PK will automatically model that palette for you based on standardized data. If you want to make any adjustments to these, you can. So we give you the option to edit these fields directly in this summary of materials table here, or in the actions, you can go in edit and make any adjustments to that palette component as needed. But it's already assigned at the palette unit packaging level and all of this standardized data. So does that work for you? So the next thing you'll do is add the first component for your first scenario. Let's call this the tin. So the next new thing that you see here is this recycling pathway. So previously in PK4, all of the tinned steel sheet components of that scenario would have the same end of treatment at the end of life. Now we allow you to specify component-specific recycling pathways for this specific component. So you can set it as material default, and that was what PK did in the past. Or you can set it as none. So none basically means that for this particular component, and it most commonly I would think apply to very, very small components that won't get recycled as they normally would. That sort of either get lost in the recycling plant or thrown in with landfill. Or there's open loop only. So before in PK4, we didn't distinguish between closed and open loop recycling. This allows you to specify that this particular component is open loop recycling only. But again, if you're not sure, the material default would be what we recommend here. Okay, and then the next new thing is this material certification section. So we'll talk about this a little bit in a little bit more detail later in the frequently asked questions section, but I'll just briefly cover. So these are three material certification presets that we have for you. If you want to change those, you can do so with this pop-up here. But all this does is just track in the report that you've said that this is a carbon neutral material or FSC certified material. Okay, and then transport and conversion is all the same here. Now, what I might do is just jump back into actually no, I'll take you through the rest of it. So summary of conversion, that is the same. We haven't changed that. Here is this product loss section, because in the scope we specified that this was this takes into account product loss and product mass during transportation. But all the fields here were in PK4, so I will skip over these ones unless you have any specific questions. Okay, going next into the filling. This is all the same. The next new thing that you'll see is we've split out end of life into its own section. Previously, this was in the consumer field, but now it's got its own section. So reuse is part of end of life as well. If you want to model a reuse of any specific component, you can do so in the same way that you would in PK4 here. And then we've got the split between retail end of life. So anything up until the supermarket level, the consumer doesn't take it home with them. And then consumer end of life. So this is what the consumer does. Going across here, you'll see we've got a few new end of life pathways available to select. We've got that open loop recycling, chemical recycling, pyrolysis and gasification, open burning, or none. And then here is that component specific end of life settings, which I touched on before. If you did specify either none or open loop only when you were modeling this component, it would be summarized here. Okay, so I will just jump into a finished project to show you this report generation field. So we've got a few new options here. One of them is now there's a spider chart available for the PEF categories with toxicity and without toxicity. Still doing its background calculations. Okay, great. So quick chart at a glance feature. And then another new thing that you'll notice in report generation is we have added the option to do a sensitivity analysis. So this is really helpful if you don't want the report to be bogged down with lots of different scenarios, but you just want to test the sensitivity of something like recycled content on the overall environmental impact. What you can do is just choose the main two or your main scenarios up here in the reporting field, and then go down under sensitivity analysis, add the reference. So in this case, I'll add the steel can, assuming 0% recycled content. And then the two variations I have loaded here are 50% recycled content and 100% recycled content. So if I generate that, and bearing in mind with the sensitivity analysis, it has to do a few more background calculations. So we have noticed it can sometimes take a minute or two longer. But we think it is worth the wait once you'll see the final report. Is everyone familiar with sensitivity analysis and its usefulness in LCA? Yep. So the great thing about it is you'll see in the report, we've still got the two main scenarios that I've selected here. So it's really clean and easy to evaluate, and you don't get bogged down in too many numbers. For the main section of the report, which I'll skim through. And then if you jump to the sensitivity analysis section, then this is, so it's towards the end of the report, and it shows very clearly the percentage variance from the baseline packaging scenario that you selected. So in this case, 0% recycled. You can see that it saves, or it's a 7% reduction in impact to climate change if you had 50% recycled content, and a 13% reduction with 100% recycled content. So great for quick analysis and identifying, how sensitive one or two key parameters are to the overall environmental impact of your packages that you're looking to model.
And I think in those you can have, Lucy's at 4 within each sensitivity analysis and unlimited numbers of sensitivity analysis with a report. Yeah. So previously you could never report more than 6 things within any report. Now you can have up to 6 scenarios and then an unlimited number of sensitivities testing individual parameters.
Okay, so Gabriella, what's next on the agenda? Should we go through some ask questions?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Or I can jump into some of the ones we have ready to ask Tim already. No more questions? Okay, cool. So I think because you've already just moved through it, Lucy, in the end of life section, you mentioned that there's 4 new end of life faiths. Tim, did you just want to kind of talk through those and give a bit of rationale as to why we've added them in?
Yeah, so the end of life of products now is becoming increasingly diverse. with different open and closed loop recycling options, the emergence of chemical recycling, the potential of pyrolysis and gasification, taking particularly plastics, but also other materials back to sort of some form of bio-crude or other valuable products, and the existence of open burning. So we've added those as pathways. Very few of them will come into play as a default pathway, but if there's something where you're identifying a particular region where there may be an option or a technology or a package that's really being designed for those endpoints, we'll be able to model them. So for the open loop, closed loop recycling, obviously, and even in the existing recycling data, we've just had recycling, and most of that is normally assumed to be open loop, particularly for the polymers and metals and things. So we'll make a differentiation between which ones are closed loop, and where there are a few products, such as glass, where it can go closed loop back to bottles or open loop into aggregate type products. Maybe with plastics, there is closed loop back to polymer, open loop back to some form of wood substitute or other manufactured product. So not every material will have an open, I don't think there'll be a open loop recycling pathway for steel and metals and things. They'll basically have their closed loop recycling pathway as their main thing. The other thing we've added is none as an end-of-life pathway. So if it just happens that the thing that you have, and for example, we've had dry ice as a material added to a packaging system. Of course, it actually has an emission. I think we build the emission of the CO2 back to atmosphere in the dry ice, and so it doesn't exist at the end of life. So it would go to none as an end of life. But also, if you want to just exclude the end of life of one material for some reason, you can send it all to none. Note that if in the scoping of the study you decide to click that you don't want end of life, it will exclude end of life for all options. Previously, end of life was always on. Now, if you do want to exclude it for whatever reason, that's available. So, we haven't at the moment. If you're trying the tool, those pathways haven't been properly modeled because we can't do that until we do the major data update, which we don't want to do until we've moved everyone across. We want to keep the data consistent as it is now while we transition across, so you can see that your results are not changing. And I think a few weeks, probably a month or so after we get everyone transitioned across and everyone's happy with the data, we'll do a data update, and then those end-of-life pathways will actually become available with the correct modelling.
Great, thank you. We haven't touched on it. Well, we spoke about it in the first webinar that we had on PK5, the organisation packaging footprint. Maybe just, if you can talk about, this isn't ready as of yet. We're still in beta mode, but what do you foresee? How do you foresee this working? Maybe Lucy, did you mind just clicking through to the organisation internal data?
So there's many elements to this piece, and I suppose in PK4 we added the ability to calculate across all of your projects to calculate an organizational footprint, but we didn't really give people any way to upload organizational data en masse and to manage that data and to link it to existing systems. So the various pieces for this one is managing a set of data on stock keeping units that can be uploaded via a spreadsheet or connected via an API to preload PK with data on packaging formats. It would then automatically link those packaging data to projects within PK. So, or if we're using, so one way would be to take existing data and link it to an existing project, so you can match a pack to a PK project, or in the longer term, as we import data, it would automatically have an intelligence to be able to go and seek with the information from the ERP system to work out how to at least do the first order of linking to materials and conversion processes and end of life.
Yep.
Haven't been able to bring data in, we can then we'll have a series of screens to be able to analyze the carbon footprint of the entire packaging portfolio in a given year, the material mix, the end of life destinations, the percentage of certified product, how much is recyclable, how much is recycled based on the defaults within that you've selected in PIQET, to be able to then report an overall organizational footprint.
Yeah.
What we haven't done is really establish what that footprint report will look like. So what sort of data we want out? Is it just going to be carbon data? Is it going to be material flows? So that's the bit that still needs a little bit of work. And of course, connecting to anyone's internal ERP system is of course a specialized activity and not something we do overnight or you do yourself. We would need to interact with an IT system to be able to do that.
Okay, great. That leads to the next question. Well, you pretty much covered it about the purpose of tracking certified materials, because currently it shows, so when you do select that a material is certified and then it shows up, it's just kind of reported or noted in the report, but yeah, maybe this is something that would potentially be included in the organization footprint report.
Yeah, and the other thing we want to do with the certifications is to be able to, if you're certifying a product, a material being carbon neutral, then we want to be able to separately report the results of that footprint, including the carbon neutrality of that particular pathway. So under the ISO standards, you can't include carbon offsets and carbon neutral claims within a base LCA, but you can report it as a separate value. So if you have purchased or developed carbon neutral products, it can be reported separately within LCA, and so we would link that to the carbon neutral certification. For the bio-based certification, either FSC or PEFC, at the moment under the circularity indicators, we don't count bio-based materials as circular, even though some circularity formulas will say sustainably sourced bio-based materials should be counted as circular. But we never really had a way to say, oh, this data is, is sustainable. So we will allow eventually a switch to be switched on. Say, if it's certified as under a particular scheme, then count that towards our circularity indicator.
Thanks. We have a question in the chat from Jackie. She said, sorry for the late attendance. One question on materials. When you have one component, 9 sub retail unit, currently 100% LDPE, now with an alternative scenario, 80% LDPE plus 20% HDPE, how do I manage this? 2 separate items. Yeah, Jackie, if you feel free to jump on and ask the question, but Tim, it's also in the chat if you can respond to that.
Yeah, I think 2 ways. If it's got the 2 components, if you want them to be treated as one component at end of life, then you would have them to be a composite material. So you would model a custom material and bring them together in a custom material so that they essentially become one material made up of 80% LDPE and the 20% HDPE. That way, at the end of life, they get seen as polyethylene recycling. You need to state whether it would go into the HDPE recycling system or into an LDPE recycling system. That'd probably be the best way, given that I assume they are combined. They're not 2 separate components that would be dealt with separately at end of life.
Maybe Lucy, do you want to jump into custom materials just in case? Please.
So up here is where you can set custom materials or custom conversion. So you click add custom material here. And apologies, I don't seem to have access to your question in the chat, so I can't see exactly what you'd model here, but I'll just show you a general custom material. So you give your material a name. And then the next field here is add at end of life, treat the composite material as. So this is generally you'd pick the closest the material that has the closest end of life treatment to the composite material that you're looking to model. So if it was mostly an LDPE based material, you'd pick that one here. And then the next step is to add the materials required to produce 1 kilogram of that custom material. So if it's 1 kilogram and it's 80% LDPE and 20% recycled HDPE, then you'd add in,
Sorry, Lucy, just while you're doing that, Jackie also said if the virgin LDPE comes from the Middle East and the recyclate is local to Australia. I'm not sure if that.
Okay. So
yeah, I think when you do the transportation, which isn't done at the custom material level, you would need to build a custom transport logistic, and in there you could bring in the transportation for 80% share and the transportation for the 20% share under custom transport logistics. So where you can split the logistics into 2 parts, and you can use that for a lot of different things, both for distribution of outgoing packaging, but also the incoming material. So that'd be the place to be able to, it would need to be a customer, it's a little clumsy, I know, but it need to be a custom transportation for the 2 components, and then you'd apply that to the delivery of this custom material into your system.
And you can model, you can email support@pk.com with any questions about custom transport and custom materials, and we can assist with complex modeling scenarios like that.
Yeah, I think Jackie has.
Okay. Okay, and then the next one is the RHDPE. So the remaining weight to make up 1,000 grams, and then just make that 100% recycled content and tick that there. And then there's your custom material, and you can pull that into your model. Any other questions?
Are you brave enough to look at that custom transportation to see if that's functioning, Lucy?
Yeah. So custom trucks.
Custom transport chain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool updates to PK. Yay. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. A better name for it. Yeah.
Okay, so this material, it was
Is a 2080 supply of 2080 mix or something. Yeah.
okay, so this is transport to and from multiple sites, right? Because we've got, yeah. Okay, so we'll pick the locations for now. So you said the virgin LDP comes from the Middle East. This is the LDPE, and that's 80% of the product comes from the Middle East. So should we just say it comes from Dubai, maybe? And then where would your manufacturing location be, or where does the HDPE join on? Well, I'll just make it up. Let's say it flies to or gets flies to Malaysia. Distance not calculating, that's fun. Okay, so we'll just give it manual distance then. Ship. Okay, so then we'll add that transport leg. And then the next transport leg is the remaining 20%, already calculates that for you. That's nice. So that might come onto the ship and only go 10,000 and add that transport leg in there. Tim, does that look about right?
Yeah, you can add multiple legs in each of those if you need to. We won't
Yep.
spend the whole day doing that. Yep.
Right, and then there's your custom transport chain that you can pull in back into the project here. We just use the soup tin as an example. Then you tick custom material, pull in. I can't remember what we called it. Oh, okay, sorry. Going down a bit of a rabbit hole here. And then for transport, you would tick custom freight scenarios, and then you can pull in, there's the 80/20 plastic freight. Does anyone have any other questions or feedback? Things that you like, things that you don't like?
Okay, maybe I'll run through the timeline. Actually, sorry, before I jump in that, is it, Lucy, do you mind just going into preferences and showing just a few
Oh, yes.
things and
Yeah, into organization preferences.
yeah.
Yeah, so we've added a few new features to organization preferences. The first one here is the option to upload your company. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one here is the option to upload your company logo. So you can upload that here. And then when you do upload it, there will be a pop-up that you can either agree yes or no, but it asks, do you authorize for your organization to be recognized as a PK user? So that could be on our PK website. We just sometimes display a list of current and current PK users, and this allows you to authorize whether or not you'd like your logo for us to use your logo or not. So that's quite important there. But we would never publish or show any of your data or your models. It's purely the logo for marketing purposes only. And then the next one is this is based on some feedback. Some users loved the new colors, some not so much. So this allows you to pick. We've got this sliding toggle here, whether you want almost transparent colors, or you can increase the depth of the colors all the way through to solid block colors here. So you can choose what you like and then set that as your default for all graphs and reporting going forward. Here is where you can change the material certifications available. If there's material certifications that are specific to your organization, you can do so here. And then we've added a few packaging indicators which you can customize which you want included when you select packaging indicators in your report generation. You can choose those there. Okay, and then the final new thing that we've added is, and I'll get Gabriella to show what that looks like, but you can choose to look at your results that have been weighted and normalized as per the environmental footprint method with the PEF weightings, or you can select custom weightings. So if you think that climate change is the most important to you, you can set that a custom weighting of 50%, and then maybe 25% particulate matter and 25% acidification. You can override the PEF weightings and select your own custom weightings.
I'll actually wait maybe a week or two because it's just on the development server. So when it's ready, I'll let everyone know. We also have just one more question from Letitia. This is about custom materials and custom. Can you remind us of how early access is recently? Yeah, sorry. So one on the custom material, and then I'll just talk through the timeline in a second. But Letitia has asked, yeah, could we add multi-layer flexible film as a custom material? Could we also add new conversion methods?
Yeah,
So,
I think with that we can always add new methods. So obviously, Lucy, you can talk to the custom material thing, but the new conversion methods. So if you have your own data about a conversion method, you can create a custom conversion, and you can add the electricity use associated with it, if it needs compressed air, if it has some thermal energy. So you can build your own if you have that data. If you actually just want, you don't know what that data is, and you say, can we please have wood shaving or some new, digital printing or something, let us know, and we can do what we can to research that and actually add it as a generic process where we supply that data. Yeah, so that we won't be doing any updates until we get through this next few weeks of actually launching the tool, but we're always open to adding new processes to make it more functional. On the multi-layer flexible, obviously the existing custom materials allow you to add different materials, but again, yeah, if it's got some special new conversion process, then that can be a bit of a that's a separate activity.
Yeah, and you can add as many layers as you want to your custom material, as long as the massable, with the flexible film, that would obviously be quite light, so it might be difficult to scale that up to what the proportion of each is, adding up to 1,000 grams. So if you think of it as a percentage, then that can sometimes be a little bit easier to calculate the multiple layers of really light materials such as a flexible film. And then, yeah, if you know the energy inputs as well involved in manufacturing that film, when you're creating a custom material, you can also add those conversions at the same time as building the custom material.
Okay. Okay, I'll just share my screen and quickly go through the timeline, and then we can answer any final questions.
Oh yeah, so early access of PIQET 5 as well. There I can resend you that link, Alex.
Okay. That, sorry for the black boxes. Whoops. Go away. Okay. So yes, this is our, transitional webinar, but up until we launch, which is on the 15th of October, please please, you know, jump on App 5 link, which we'll send around to you again. Try and go through the Tomato tutorial if you can, because it's trying to, you know, make you get comfortable with those extra features. You know, jump on, you can check your projects. We've made sure that all the data is, you know, everything's coming, all the results are as they should be. But yeah, please also go through and get comfortable. And then PIQET, when we launch at 5, that will be Tuesday, 15th of October. Yeah, essentially you won't have access to PK4 anymore. It will still be running, and so if you know, if you need, it's fine. It will still, everything will still be there, but essentially we want to kind of move everyone off all in one go. I think PK will be unavailable for about an hour. I've just checked with the developer, but we'll confirm the timings with you. And then once we've launched, then we're going to try and bring organization packaging footprint to life. So if anyone is really interested in this new section, we would love for you to kind of get involved, and if you want to volunteer doing a pilot. Essentially, it's, you know, working with our IT team, your IT team, with the, connecting the ERP system, so it's automatically kind of flowing through. And alongside that, we are also ISO 14044 built-in report is ready to go, and it's we've got a couple of practitioners who will review the tool. So once, for those who wish to do a ISO compliant report, we've got a series of documents there to support you whilst, you know, filling out the fields, or if you need to ask us any questions, more than happy to help. But once you've done that, we can go through the review process as well, and get our first ISO compliant report done. So it's all very exciting. If anyone's keen to get involved, please let us know. But in the meantime, play around on PK5, and yeah, we'll keep you posted on next steps. We'll also send through this recording as well, either by Friday or early next week. Does anyone have any questions around the timeline? Here are some resources. We've got a series of documents, or help scout documents. So the link is here, but it's also in App 5, where you can go up to resources and click, and all the articles are posted there. The webinar recordings are on our website, but we'll send this one through. And then there's the latest data manual and indicator manual also available on App 5.
And the logins are the same as PK4 for App 5.
Yeah.
So your existing logins.
And that's it from me.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,